speaking as the board. I said make it very clear. People have to sit there, you know. Right.
Welcome everyone to City Council meeting for September 24th. If we could have a roll call please to establish quorum.
Melissa Greene.
I'm here.
Jerry McClung.
I'm here.
Becky Schneider.
Yep.
Tom Buford.
Here.
Bob Thomas.
Here.
And Christy Kendrick is absent with notice. We have 5.
All right. Stand and pledge allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Get a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Got any corrections, additions? All right, hearing none. All those in favor of the agenda as presented, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, get a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Any additions, corrections? Hearing none. All those in favor of the approval of the minutes as submitted, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. We got a couple of vacancies still on the Planning Commission and one on the CAPC. In your packet, we have a nomination for Dr. Barani for the Hospital Commission. He'll be coming up the next meeting. So if y'all want to look through there and got any questions or anything, try to get a hold of him out at the clinic. And then cemetery position, we got 2 positions vacant there also. So, public comments?
Hello, I'm Steve Vorbeck. Most people know me as Yip. I live at 384 County Road 332 in Eureka Springs. I'm here to respond to the comments that were made at the last City Council meeting regarding the 1922 bank robbery reenactment we did a few weeks ago. Now, I was not here to witness those comments in person, but I did read them in both of our local papers. There seemed to be high umbrage taken over the fact that the reenactment was rehearsed. Well, yes, it was rehearsed. The 2 people who were doing the major complaining, Ms. Powell and Ms. Schneider, obviously are ignorant of how an event like this is put together. That's not really their fault since they weren't at any of the planning sessions. But they have no idea how much time is spent planning, how many people it takes. It's not just the actors you see on the street. There are a lot of people behind the scenes, people who write the script, people who supply the props, the costumes, people who direct the actors, and there are several other people also. These are people who have volunteered their time, talent, and money to recreate this slice of Eureka Springs history. Great pains were taken to make the reenactment as historically accurate as we possibly could and still be entertaining. Something like this doesn't just happen. It does take rehearsing. Also, there were a number of firearms used in the reenactment. They were loaded with blanks, but anyone who knows anything about firearms knows that even blanks can be dangerous if they're mishandled. This requires training and, yes, rehearsing. Ms. Schneider said she had heard nothing but negative comments about the reenactment. Well, I don't know who she was talking to, and what she said makes me wonder if she actually saw the reenactment. I saw it. I was part of it. Now, there may have been negative responses, but I didn't hear any. I heard nothing but positive comments. There was a sizable crowd, and they seemed to enjoy it. The folks I spoke with thought it was great fun. Now, I could overlook the ignorance shown by these 2 people until I came to the part in the article where Ms. Schneider said the reenactment was, in her words, ridiculous. I was at all of the rehearsals and some of the planning meetings, and I didn't see Ms. Schneider at any of those offering up her expertise on how to keep the reenactment from being ridiculous. Now, next year will mark the 50th anniversary of the reenactment. I would think Ms. Powell and Ms. Schneider may very well have valuable ideas as to how to make this better. They should volunteer to help. But they do need to know that would require putting forth a little effort and actually doing something. Or they can choose to not get involved, and again next year they can complain about how things are not the way they think they should be. Thank you for the time.
We're best friends, it's okay.
Hello, my name is Jack Byrne. I live at 16 Hale Street, which is up Flint Street. You turn onto Steel like you're going up to the Lookout, and it's 1 block long is 16 Hale. I want to thank you for finally getting yield signs put in at Douglas Street at Flint, but there's still a problem. You can't tell when you come down Main Street and you turn right onto Flint. It's all blind till you get around the corner. I've almost ran into 2 people since they've opened Flint Street up, which was only, I think, the end of August, because people are coming down Douglas Street and they zip into the intersection of Flint, and they always look at me and yell at me saying, "I was in the intersection first." The problem with Douglas Street is Douglas Street where there's no marking where Douglas Street meets Flint Street. It's just wide open black pavement. The second problem is Douglas Street 2 lanes wide when it hits Flint Street or not? The yield sign that they put in is back by the church, and they finally put in the yield sign on the pavement. But the problem is when you come down Douglas Street, you can't see anybody who is turning onto Flint Street until you get up to where the first car parks next to the Grand Central Hotel. We need to create something, whether it's a curb from the church all the way up to where there's a yield sign and a white line across, so that those people have to go up, stop, look both ways, and then go. And so there's a real problem. This is pictures of what you see. The first one is what you see when you turn right onto Flint Street. According to Dwayne Allen, Flint Street has the right-of-way. So there's nothing there that really marks it that Flint Street has the right-of-way. And so I think this is a public issue. It's been like this since I moved here in 1980. And consequently, the traffic is getting more heavy there. The hotel is increasing, so that's an issue that I would like you to take up. I did some experimental drawings on it to maybe give you some ideas what I thought could work. But what you have to do is designate the street up to Flint Street. And then they turn right, because a lot of times they cut through that parking lot. I've got 2 other issues, and I'm going to just tell you what they are. And I thought you were going to give me a warning.
I did.
Okay, there's 2 other issues with speeding up Flint Street, and the other one is water drainage.
Okay.
On East Mountain, you don't control the water of the streets, and it's knocked a lot of walls down, and I'd like you to all address that. Thank you.
Hey, good evening. My name is Eric Knowles, and I'm here tonight to try to keep I live in Spur Lane in the city. I'm here tonight to try to keep our city a livable place, and I have 3 issues I'd like to address. First, I urge you not to give away our residential base by granting a CUP to turn a residence on Thomas Drive into a tourist accommodation. Tourists have many places from which to choose. Potential residents have few. The zoning in the section in section 1408 is clear on 3 accounts. First, CUPs are not a right. The municipal code says specifically a conditional use permit is not a matter of right, but shall be granted when the proposed use is in harmony with the character of the zone where it shall be located. That's page 437. Second, the residential zoning regulations are intended to protect the residential character of the areas from adverse effects caused by commercial use. That's page 399. And third, the residential zoning decisions should encourage a suitable environment for family life. The residents on Thomas Drive deserve to wake up in the morning and know who their neighbors are. The second issue I want to address is that I asked the city administration to attend to the city lights that do not work. Last month, on a drive around the historic loop, I counted 22 lights that appear to be city-owned lights that were not operating. These include 2 by the downtown trolley station, 1 of the 3 at the historic museum, and 14 of the 18 lights on the iron fence between Spring Street and Main Street. Poor lighting is a safety issue, and the presence of non-working lights is also an image issue. At night, the downtown looks shabby and uncared for because, in fact, it is. And third, I'd like to ask city government to be more responsive to citizen input. Over a month ago, I delivered a letter to the mayor expressing my concern about the non-working lights downtown. And in the following month, I've heard nothing from the mayor and see that nothing has been done about these lights. In the past 3 years, I've heard repeatedly from city officials and from the aldermen sitting here that what I need to do is to come and make my 3-minute presentation to city council meetings and to send letters to the mayor's office. I wanted you to know that I follow that advice, but it's not working for me. Here's the letter I sent.
Okay.
That concludes our public comments. Under new business, we got a motion to discuss the presentation of plans for the auditorium.
So moved.
Second. Mr. Burris is here somewhere. There he is. Terry Burris is the architect that we've got working on the plans down there, and he has came up with, we've talked about 2 different solutions, 2 different types of elevator systems, and I think Terry's got some thoughts on that. I think we're basically using the same location for either one, but anyway, I'll let it go off with Terry.
Terry Burris, architect from Little Rock. Thank you to Mayor Berry and city council members for the opportunity to spend some time in Eureka Springs. We have looked at this several times, and we were charged to look at obtaining accessibility to the lower level, to the old gymnasium component. And so in looking at that, we had to investigate several alternatives. And some of this is probably already been shared with you, but I just kind of want to repeat it and kind of bring you back up to speed. We did look at, of course, let's put a full-blown elevator in. And the cost of that exceed probably $100,000. The other aspect of that is the pit requirements and the headroom requirements for a hoistway for a true elevator in the northeast corner. And that would have caused us to probably have to raise a 8x8 section of the back stage area at least 5 feet to accommodate a true elevator with a hoistway system. So at that point we said, what are some alternatives? And we looked at vertical platform lifts. And y'all are familiar with those. That's a stair lift that you've got installed over here. So a vertical platform lift is just a simple accessibility lift that it goes vertical. The reality of those is they're limited in size and in weight capacity. They're typically 36 to 42 inches wide, and they are typically 48 to 60 inches long. They're kind of a roll-on enter. It's a one-passenger. It's made to handle someone in the wheelchair, take them up and down. And so they're very limited. Their weight capacity is around anywhere from 600 to 750 pounds, depending on the unit you pick. So we said, okay, maybe there's something in between. And we looked at what they call limited use, limited application elevators. And what these are elevators that are a step up from private residential elevators. The good thing about them is their pit requirement is anywhere from 8 to 14 inches. So they don't require a true pit. There was some investigative surgery done on the lower level floor, and so we could see what we had to deal with structurally. And an elevator of this type could be installed. Their headroom requirement is anywhere from 8 feet to 9 feet, and from the upper landing we've got 9'4" clear. So we're okay in that scenario. And just from just a real quick overview of basic costs, the chairlift traveling at approximately 12 feet installed is going to run in the $30,000 to $32,000 range. These Lula elevator systems, again, it'd be a two-stop. It's got doors. It's just like a small elevator, really. They do have a 7-foot ceiling, so it's low in one sense, but the operable doors, and they run in the $62,000 to $65,000 range for equipment and installation. There would still, with each of these, be the ancillary construction of the surround, because even the chairlift, the fact that we're exceeding 4 to 5 feet in height, we have to enclose that in a shaft up to the second floor. It's a code requirement. So that's it. That's kind of it in a nutshell. And probably at this point some direction to help us establish which way to maybe go, and we can formalize this in a report to Mayor Berry. Yes, sir.
Yes, I appreciate you coming up and presenting this. I'm not sure I understood it completely, but you said the last one that you described was the elevator with a 7-foot ceiling. Load capacity was? It's
1,400 pounds.
1,400 pounds and 60 some odd.
62,000, 65,000.
Is that? Now, if I understood you correctly, I thought you said that was the unit including installation.
That's the unit installed. What it would not include is the wall surrounds that would be,
and is that
built to encase it.
Is that just something that's framed? Is that
would just be frame construction.
Sheetrock?
Sheetrock.
Yeah, fire code.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
And like I say, we would have to be doing that at least up to 42 inches above the upper landing, even with the chairlift. Because once we exceed a chairlift going 4 to 5 feet, you've got to provide an enclosure.
Right.
So,
and then on the lower level, you exit at floor level.
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I think Mr. Burris has also shown on one of the pages too, and that's is the possibility of being in phases, but going ahead and having some sort of a partition that would separate out for a council area for meeting areas in there too.
Flip the page.
Just an accordion.
Just an accordion type door that could be shut off and or opened up as needed. Yeah.
If you had
but again, this would be
you could open it up. A smaller meeting, you could keep it closed. And we're not talking we wouldn't propose using the accordion type doors. We're talking about a real wall panel system that you see. So it
just a folding panel then?
Yes. It provides some sound control
okay.
and other things. So.
Now, unfortunately, those things cost quite a bit of money.
They do.
So that could be later on, somewhere down the road, could always be done. But at least that's a start.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
And then on the lower level, then you exit at floor level.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And then there are no specs on the ADA restroom as such.
Our search has said we should put it down here in what would be the
Right.
southeast corner. There's plumbing there. There's adequate room to provide what we would call an ADA family/unisex toilet, large enough for a parent to take a child in, have a baby changing station, as well as meet ADA requirements.
Okay. Oh, I'm pleased with that. That's doable.
Anybody else got any questions?
Just thank you.
Well, I think the question, the direction to go is going with the, I know what my preference is, but it's basically we need direction on, do we want to go with the lift or we want to go with this Lula elevator system?
And what's it called? Lula?
It's abbreviation for limited use, limited application.
So,
because they're kind of that hybrid in between a residential and a full-blown commercial.
But that would give us where it would handle more people, it would be wheelchair accessible, ADA accessible, also allow us to handle any equipment that we needed to get downstairs, loads and supply and stuff like that. So the other one, we're pretty limited to that 750 pounds isn't very much.
well, my next question then, Mr. Mayor, is, we can tentatively approve that, but do we need to go ahead and push then? What do we need to do as far as pushing the whole project?
Should say everybody agrees that this is what we think we should do.
Because we still need to finish.
Oh, we'll still need the rest of the drawings and do the handicap bathrooms.
Okay.
And also possibility of getting see if we can get the CAPC to help buy into this too, because it would be able to be used for them.
I laid a little groundwork on that. It's been some time, but
yeah. So
what we would propose to do is go ahead and develop the documents to the next level. If you decide, whichever system you decide to go with, and we would develop the documents to the next level, flesh out the ADA bathroom. We've also looked at that rear exit of how we could make that accessibility with a landing and some ramp situation. And then we would be able to put a better budget cost estimate together on the selected system that would include all the work. And bring that back to the council, and it meets with y'all's approval and put it out for bid.
then I'd like to go ahead and make a motion at this time to approve the Lula system.
I'll second that.
Got a motion and a second to approve the Lula system. Got comments? Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I've got three different sets of numbers here. We've got one that's 30 to 32,000, one that's 62 to 65, and then I've got 100,000 written down. What was that?
The 100,000 is if we went in there and tried to put a true commercial elevator in, which would have meant chopping up the back northwest corner of the stage, would have meant a pit, a lot of structural work that I have real concerns with in the whole building.
So on these prices, is that for the lift itself, or does that include the architectural work?
What do you mean by the architectural work?
Everything that's going to be done, or is it strictly
No,
the
that's
elevator?
strictly that's the equipment only.
That's the equipment only.
Okay.
And
Do we have any idea approximately what this is going to cost for either, or is it the same?
I really don't like to just throw out numbers.
Just a round figure off the top of your
I
head.
think that's what when we comes back, he develops this, he'll have the better numbers for
Then
us.
let me word my question this way. Is that extra expense, the working expense, approximately the same for both elevators? Or is there like double for one?
No. It's approximately the same.
Okay, so regardless of what we go with, okay. That's all I
The
needed to
improvement
know.
costs are going to be right within a small percentage of each other.
And the bathroom's going to be the same no matter which way you
The
go?
bathroom's the same, the rear ADA accessibility. There's a little bit more wall work because with the Lula elevator, we do have a complete enclosure as opposed to enclosure going up 4 feet above the landing. So there's a little bit more wall work, but that becomes minimal
Okay.
when you look at the big picture.
Okay. Anything else? Any other comments, questions? All right. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Burris.
We will get busy.
All right. Appreciate
Thank
it.
y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Our next item, discussion of proposed changes to the animal laws with Ms. Schneider and Ms. Greene.
I move to discuss. Second.
All right. Which one? Ms. Greene, Ms. Schneider. Sorry.
Okay, we don't know what happened to our papers from before. So what we've done is we all got together again, the police chief, the animal control, the president of the Humane Society, and we all got together again and we revised going by what y'all had said at the previous meeting when we were discussing that. And these are the changes that we have now come up with. And this is something that Animal Control Officer, Police Chief, and the President of the Humane Society, all three of them, thoroughly back these changes. So we did the 100 foot per dog is changed to, for each dog 25 to 39 pounds, 50 square feet, and 40 pounds or more in weight, 100 square feet. And we're going to remove the one little line that says 6 months of age in lieu of the weight change. Under habitat, that stays the same as previously. No domesticated animals shall reside in any unoccupied residence or on any unoccupied property. Under other animals, and this was a big change that we came up with, under other animals, the wording where it's saying which animals are not permitted within city limits, we want to remove the words no hogs, change the wordage to no swine. In talking to quite a few of our area vets, they said while a pot-bellied pig is a different critter from a hog, it still can push 200 pounds. Which is not really cool in your backyard in the middle of a Victorian village. They also said that these new, I forget what they're exactly called, these little mini pigs actually will be pushing over 100 pounds. This is not cool. So what we have decided was, by using the word no swine, every vet suggested we change the term no hogs to no swine, because while hogs and pigs are different, swine encompasses all of them. So like I said, that was probably the biggest change. And then we've got removing the language referring to police officers for contact and replace it with ACO, the animal control officer, and that the conflicts, reports, and questions shall be handled by the ACO, and they will use their own discretion. So they won't just go over and say, give me your dog, you're not doing it right. They will give them time to explain the situation, what's going on, and take care of it in that regard. Everybody will have a proper chance. So these are the changes that our legal people in control and the ones that have to deal, these are the changes that they have come up with.
Ms. Greene?
Okay, can I see this, Vicki? Okay, I was asked by the president, I'm on the board of the Humane Society, to talk. Our problem with the enclosure thing is not, an enclosure to us is where an animal lives. It's not a home, it's not somebody's backyard, it's not somebody's porch, it's not a cage for the day. It's where an animal basically is forced to live. And when, at the Humane Society, when we have a 25 to 39 pound dog or in that area, occasionally we have to put them in a 50 square foot cage. They are taken out 3 or 4 times a day. They have outdoor activities, their cages are cleaned. But when you put an animal into 50 square feet, that's about the size of 2 of these tables, a little bit more. And if they're forced to live in that, they're forced to live in their waste. Our mission at the Humane Society is to stop cruelty, and we feel that we can't stop people from putting animals in a cage and making them live. We would prefer, we voted at the last meeting, that it stay at 100 square feet. And that is for an enclosure. It's not for somebody's backyard. This is not where we're going. We would prefer that nobody in this town put an animal into a cage to live, but it happens. So I cannot, in good conscience, while I support Jimmy 100%, I support you, Mr. Young, I cannot vote for these changes. The rest of them are perfect. I appreciate all of the work that you did, and I support those.
Ms. Schneider?
Okay, I'm surprised to find out that you guys voted on this and that the president didn't tell me, because he's the one who told me, I'll take it back, okay. He's the one who told me that his only problem last time was that we had failed to mention the small dog poundage, and that if we put that in there, he'd be perfectly behind it. So, I don't know, but either way, point being, this is going to take 6 weeks to pass, or 3 meetings, because we have all agreed from the beginning, we will not do any extraneous voting, we will not hurry any voting. This way, we want to get it started so that people can come forward and voice their opinion. Whether it's at the mic or in an email, doesn't matter. But this gives them 6 weeks to voice their opinion, maybe give us other ideas, but we have 6 weeks to tweak it if necessary. So that's why we want to get this out there and get it started. If we have to change one little teeny line, that's not a big deal, you know, but we do need to get this started to protect our animals for in the future. And that is the biggest problem, is the in the future.
Mr. Thomas?
I've forgotten the 3 people, the police chief, the Humane Society president, and who was the third one?
The animal control officer.
Animal control.
Building control had also sounded in, but...
At the start of this discussion, did those 3 people come in and say, the current law is a bad law, we've got to change it?
The animal control officer said, I have got to have some way to be able to take care of animals.
The 100 feet?
Because everything was so open, varied, not to the point. It didn't do any good to, like, you know, try to get somebody to stop doing something because he'd just get laughed out of the courtroom because we didn't have proper laws. These just need the slight revising so that he has a leg to stand on, so to speak. If you want to talk to him, he's right there.
Well, I just am asking you,
Okay.
100 square feet is a leg to stand on. Why does 100 square feet and 50 feet give you a better leg to stand on? That doesn't make sense.
The ASPCA, their guidelines include smaller sized animals and the larger sized animals. And that's why the president was going by the ASPCA guidelines, because they show big and little.
And one final comment. Why in the world would you ignore small dogs under 25 pounds?
We don't ignore them. You can't say every dog from an ounce up.
Pardon?
You don't, if you've got a 25-pound dog in a 50-foot area, you're going to have a 5-pound dog there too. I mean, do you see what I'm saying?
No.
Oh, okay.
You've eliminated.
So you want us to go from 0 to 25, 25 to 39, and 40 to whatever? I mean, we can. I'm asking. Is this what you're saying?
I'm concerned that you've eliminated small dogs.
Okay. This was worded at the request of the president of the Humane Society. He said that the ASPCA does 2 designations. That's what he told me. So that's what we did. I don't mind. This is what I'm talking about tweaking. we have time to tweak. We can add a smaller thing in, but I would want to go back and check with ACO and vets and the president to find out the footage for a smaller animal.
Ms. Greene?
That's not what Jay and I talked about. At the Humane Society, our dogs that are small, maybe 20 pounds top, are in a smaller enclosure. But again, these animals are taken out, they have outdoor time, they're walked, they're played with, their cages are clean. What this all started about was animals being locked up in inappropriate small sizes. And that's wrong. I don't care. It's wrong. And I cannot in good conscience vote for this. Jimmy is a very smart man. He knows how to use his discretion. We have a good law in the books. And to me, nobody should have a dog that they're just going to leave in a pen. But again, look at the size of these two tables. Would you want, Butch, I know the size of your dogs, to have to live in that? I don't think so.
I don't think this is 50 feet.
No, two tables.
Yeah,
All right, hold on. Any other comments? You want to make a motion or anything?
Well, I would like to make a motion that we go ahead and get started on this. So my motion would be that we vote on the re-changed changes for the animal law. How do you want me to word that? Okay, I make a motion that we go ahead and update the animal laws to what has been submitted by ACO and police.
All right, do I hear a second?
What do you guys want from our people?
There's no second. Sorry.
Yeah, well, so what do
Motion
you
fails.
guys want?
Motion fails.
Fine, so ask
Ms.
them.
Greene, did you have a...
I would like to make a motion. I move that we make a motion to accept these changes without the exception, or excluding the enclosure. And the rest of the laws brought up are no domestic animals shall reside in any unoccupied residence or any unoccupied property. Under other animals, the word hogs will be changed to swine. To remove language referring to police officers and replacing with ACO. Add all conflicts and reports and questions shall be handled by the ACO at his or own discretion.
So what did you take out?
The enclosure.
The whole thing?
The whole thing. Leave it as it is in our book.
We got a motion to
Accept changes minus the enclosure.
minus the enclosure.
So the footage,
All right.
minus the footage.
Do I have a second? Is there a second? Vicki?
I'm so, wait a minute, I've got to, okay, so you want everything but footage.
Right. We have a law for enclosure. Let's
Vicki,
just leave
let's have
it.
a second, then we can have discussion.
I guess I'll second.
All right, now then your discussion.
Okay, so what you want to do is, you don't want, it says 100 feet per dog.
Per dog.
So what you're saying is, you want to leave it at, for a 5-pound dog, they've got to have 100 feet.
Yes.
Which according to you would be 4 of these tables.
No, 2 of these. That would be
That's
4.
50. You said 2 of these would be 50.
Yeah, that would be 4.
So it would be all, it would be all of these. For a 5-pound dog, it would be all of these for 150-pound Great Dane.
They would still, if they're
That's
left...
ridiculous.
If
No,
they're
wait, let's, come on. You're asking a question, let's get a comment.
So that's what I'm saying. You're saying the exact same footage for a 5-pound dog or a 150-pound Great Dane. Why?
Because I don't think any animal that is in an enclosure, which is where they live, Mickey, should have to live in something that little. Because they're going to be living in their waste.
Do I have any other comments, question? Mickey?
Okay. If we can go ahead and at least get this stuff started, I'm going to want animal control to get together and work with me in regards to coming up with some kind of guideline for
Mickey,
I'm asking
we're
a
talking about the
Yes, I'm asking.
motion.
So we need to get together and come up with something in regards to enclosures or pens, as in
Mickey.
permanent housing. Is that what you're saying?
Mickey, we're dealing with a motion on,
Yes, that's what I'm
Eliminating the-
dealing with.
all right, Ms.
So is
Greene.
that what you're
Okay.
saying?
On our books, we have a law that says 100 square feet per dog. I want to just leave that. I trust Mr. Evans' judgment. I know he's not going to be out with a measuring tape. I know he's going to use his judgment, but at least an animal is not going to be forced to live in something too small. And I think this, at 25 to 39 pounds, my dog weighs 42 pounds. Is Jimmy going to weigh that dog? So my dog, the size of my dog's going to have to live in the size of 2 of these tables? No,
No,
that's
yours
not
would be
right.
4.
That's not what
No.
Eureka Springs is about.
I call the
All right.
question.
Okay, I want
Okay, we
Jimmy,
got a motion
can
calling
we
the
have
question.
Jimmy come
No.
up and address
No.
this, please?
No, we're
I'll
in
second
discussion
that.
on this. All right, we got a motion and a second. All in favor of calling the question, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'm waiting to hear from animal control.
Okay, I
Is this
guess-
doable?
No.
I don't know
You're
yet.
voting no.
Is this doable?
Are you voting?
Okay, he says yes.
All right, now the motion is to proceed with writing an ordinance with everything except the enclosure requirement. Does everybody understand that? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed?
No.
One? No? All right, 4-1?
Correct.
Okay, we'll proceed then. Thank you. All right, our next item is an appeal of the conditional use permit for 19 Thomas Drive by Damon Henke. Get a motion to discuss?
Everybody can afford
Mayor.
something that big for a 2-pound dog.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to recuse myself since I was involved in developing a planning commission
Okay,
and leave the room.
all right.
You don't have to leave, you can't vote.
Thank you, guys.
Get a motion to discuss?
I move to discuss the application at 19 Thomas Drive.
Okay, get a second?
A second.
All right. Mr. Henke?
Good evening. Nice to see you all. Thank you for having me. I've got something I want to hand out right quick. I'll just let you pass these down. This is really just kind of the recap of some of the things that we went over in planning. I guess I'd like to introduce myself first because I think all of you know me, but I'm Damon Henke. I've lived here in Eureka since 2010. Obviously, I handle a lot of lodging, but obviously stay involved with the community as well. One of the things that I did when I first came to the community, and just I'll be really brief about this, I want to show that I'm sensitive to the fact that we need some affordable housing. We don't just do lodging, but I bought Eureka Suites Hotel and broke that into 13 different apartments that run long-term. Anne's familiar with how we run that apartment complex, and that's been valuable and stays booked because we need even more affordable housing. But part of that segues into this property because I think, as Eric has mentioned, there's some concerns from residents, but people are confusing this with R1 and downtown Eureka Springs. When we had the hearing, there was nobody opposed to this, and I asked my neighbors. We obviously used the 200-foot rule. Nobody came to the mic in opposition. My next-door neighbor, Linda James, sent a very eloquent letter that said, yes, I would prefer that Damon be able to do this in his residence. So we have, you'd have to know our neighborhood a little bit. We've got Lori and Jason, who are musicians, Linda James next door, some guys around the corner there, Kurt and Terry, great friends of ours. But we have neighborhood parties every year. Well, we're going to have one next Tuesday. We all get together and barbecue. So it's definitely a tight neighborhood up there. The one thing that we always kid about is the fact that we're hidden behind Rockin' Pig. The Thomas Edition actually has a certain amount of commercial activity right there in the front of it as you drive back to the neighborhood anyway. My property actually borders Pine Mountain Village there too. So not only do you drive through, but I'm aligned with the commercial activity from people walking up the down the tower to the car shows and things. We hear them right in our backyard there. The other thing I want to just hit on is really why we picked a bed and breakfast. And I knew that this was a topic that people were sensitive about in town, and I didn't want to do tourist lodging because you're not required to have somebody at the property. I feel like Airbnb has come on the scene. That'll be predominantly how we get our guests, is through Airbnb. And I think it's important that somebody be at the property when you have guests coming and going. Mickey once stated that a lot of people just want to come into town to be a local for the weekend. That's predominantly what we're looking for, to come stay with us. People that have a passion for Eureka Springs like we have a passion for Eureka Springs. The neighborhood is not going to change. We bought that house. We remodeled the house. The neighbors were all concerned about the seedy activity that was going on prior to our ownership. So they're very excited the fact that we've really dressed it up and cleaned it up. It's not changing. I mean, we're still living there. The only thing that changes is the fact that some other people happen to be spending the night with us. Airbnb has definitely changed the way that homes are shared. You get to pick who gets to stay in your house based on a social media profile. I think that's an important note. I mean, I didn't have a choice. My choice was tourist lodging and bed and breakfast. There wasn't a in-home let people come stay with you option, because that's probably what we would fit more in, is we just want to have the people who love Eureka Springs and fit a profile come and stay with us. As I pointed out here in the front, allowing a short-term rental in your home doesn't constitute commercial activity. There's plenty of court cases that show that there is residential activity in short-term rentals. Rentals don't just automatically turn to like a retail store where people are coming and going from your house. I've kind of written that up a little further. I didn't touch on that during planning because we got an opinion from 2 municipal league attorneys that said you needed to disregard the covenants. But I know Tom was hung up on the covenants, and Abby was worried about the covenants for the neighborhood too. But again, there was nobody in the hearing that was against us doing that in the first place. And I think you would find that since it's residential activity, the covenant's pretty simple. It just says the lot is reserved for residential activity. We're going to meet that statute there. The bigger reason, in my opinion, to allow Airbnb rentals, and I'm going to talk just really broadly for a brief second, in some of our neighborhoods, especially in R2. I mean, we're talking about low density. I don't have a 200-foot rule in R2. There's a lot of things that R2 doesn't have that's much different than an R1 residential. But I think the big reason that you want to allow an Airbnb rental is because it lets small families and young people be able to afford a house that they couldn't necessarily afford in Eureka Springs. I think we do lose a lot of houses to second homes, and in a second home situation, we don't have tax collections off those people unless they happen to be here. And a lot of these people only come once to 3 times a year. But I think if you let a small family be able to afford that same house and let them offset it if they have a parking space, I definitely think that that's a priority to be able to generate a little income and afford more houses and hopefully grow the population from rentals. But everybody keeps saying rentals as though it's commercial activity. We need to realize that these people aren't coming and going out of a retail store. They're coming there, they're sleeping, they're eating, they're taking a shower, and they're going out and seeing the town just as though the rest of the family would be if it was an extended family who happened to be at that house. So that's kind of my pitch. The 4 things that I'm sure you read it by now. There was no opposition at the hearing. That neighborhood includes Gaskin Switch. 19, I share a property line with the village of Pine Mountain. The road, that had come up. We're one of the widest roads really up there. You can drive 2 cars side by side, and there is cars that park along the side, and you can still pass those. So there's plenty of width up there. I have 7 parking spaces off-street. That just happens to be how that particular property is laid out. The Drennans originally owned that and laid it out nicely. And then the obvious part is into the extended length on the fact that court cases have proven that short-term rentals are residential purposes. Therefore, I'm not in conflict with the covenants, as planning was had so much concern about. Questions? Yes.
Oh, don't we need to make a motion?
Yeah, we need a motion.
Okay.
For what?
We had a motion to discuss.
Yeah. Oh, we did.
That's how we
Okay.
opened it up,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, first of all, in our laws, you have the right to apply for a CUP in R2. it becomes a privilege, but you do have the absolute right, and if you meet all the requirements, you have the right to be granted a CUP.
Sure.
What I have seen with your application, you have met all the conditions. The only question I have, and I'm going to ask the lawyer, this covenants, and it was, I watched the last planning meeting, was quite an issue with them. And one of the things, I think it was Mr. Buford said, the covenants is between the homeowners. If they have whatever problems, they take each other with legal action. But what I think it was Mr. Buford said, that if that happened, Mr. Henke could turn around and sue the city for allowing him to operate. Is this true?
No.
Okay, he cannot sue us for granting a CUP.
You can sue anybody for anyone, but you should not be able to prevail.
Okay.
Because you're not granting him a right to violate the covenants. That is a matter between them as private individuals to be determined.
Right.
You're simply granting him the right under the city law to operate within the city's realm. But if he's still in violation of a private covenant, the private covenant would have to be enforced by his neighbor, and he would have his right of action against them as they would him, but not against the city, because the city is not giving him permission to violate a covenant.
Okay. Okay. One other thing. I know this is a hot topic, so I'm going to reiterate. Right now, our laws say that you may apply. You have the right to apply for a CUP. If you meet the conditions, you have the right to receive it. And no matter if I have any sentiment against it or not, you have met the conditions, I feel. I know some of the other planning commissioners said character and stuff of the neighborhood. Well, for years, we've granted CUPs. And I guess I would say my thoughts on character of the neighborhood would depend on if your neighbors didn't like it. There's nothing in any description that we have that explains what character of the neighborhood, except in our historic district guidelines, which a CUP would not fit under. So whether the public sentiment is against this or not, you have met all the requirements, to me, under the law.
Okay. Thanks. Ms. Schneider?
Okay. The problem that I'm having is this has gone to planning 3 times. They have not been able to come forth with a positive yes or no majority vote. I know that we are here for appealing and all that, but I don't think we have the knowledge, background, or right to make their decision for them. And even though Melissa's been on for like 10 or more years, I've been on 3 or 4 times, I think Terry was on in the past, we don't have the input that planning has. I mean, I'm looking at one of those where it's saying they wanted information that was in writing. I don't think any of that came through. It doesn't sound like it. But the point being, planning couldn't decide yes or no. I don't think we have the right to step on their toes. I don't think we have the right to choose for them. I think this needs to be revisited with them, and something plain needs to be brought forth, either a reason why yes or a reason why no. And then if it's a tie vote, that's one thing, but I don't think we have the position to overstep something that 3 times has not been able to be approved. That I have a real problem with that.
Reasons are here.
A couple things.
Oh, yeah, I looked at all that.
First off, they did make a decision. At the 3rd meeting, there was a motion to approve it, and it did not get a majority of votes. It failed. So they
Wasn't that a tie vote, or am I looking at the wrong one?
It doesn't matter. It didn't pass.
Okay.
Yeah, so they denied it. I also would like to say that I think that there's a lot of people in town that don't want cups. There's a lot of people in town that are happy with cups. But I think everybody in town wants an applicant to be treated and considered objectively based on the city code, as Melissa has said, and I don't think that you were in any of the 3 meetings.
Thank you. Ms. Greene?
Well, I did watch one planning meeting. I think that they deferred you a lot of times. They were considerably concerned about the covenants. The last one, again, I think the reason for the refusal was the covenants. I don't think it was that you didn't meet the criteria, and I do have the criteria here if anybody wants to read it. I had my question answered, about the covenants, and as long as the city is protected in this, then if we weren't, I would absolutely be voting no. But I can't, because the way our laws are written, no matter how, if I'm for CUPs or against CUPs, I took an oath to uphold the law. Sure. And to me, you have met the conditions.
Right. Okay. And to further elaborate on that, really the covenants came to the table right off the bat in the first meeting, and then Glenna had said, well, you can't really consider the covenants, and that was my assumption too. They asked for an opinion. There was an oral opinion given to Glenna Booth. She came back to the table with that, and they were all disappointed that it wasn't in writing. There was a little bit of a discussion there. If you wanted it in writing, she asked that they tell her that in the front. But that's why it got deferred 3 times. It wasn't so much about whether or not I met. It was just really about these covenants. And Tom's concern, just to clarify that too, and you can ask him to concur with this, Tom was concerned that if the conditional use permit, it wasn't so much that the city would be sued, he just didn't want to vote on something that would cause a conflict that required litigation inside of a neighborhood. I would be much more concerned about that if we had anybody at the hearing who was against it, but I think he just didn't want to create something that would have to have litigation between neighbors to solve.
Okay.
Mr. McClung?
I have not seen the restrictive covenants for the subdivision. However, usually restrictive covenants have a sunset clause, and the residents have to renew those or they lose their validity. I don't know if that was ever done. I'd be surprised if they ran, forever, because typically they're not done that way.
They're placed in 1968 with a 15-year expiration, and then renew every 10 years following until somebody does something about it. The only line in there is that says, in 1968, when they put this together for sale, it says lots are intended to be used for residential purposes, and then it describes the dwellings that are built must be a single-family dwelling of 2.5 stories with 2-car garages, not taller than 2.5 stories. Yeah, that's all it says.
Mr. Thomas?
I appreciate the information from both of you, but we're falling into the same rut that the Planning Commission fell into, which is bringing up covenants when we've been told covenants should not be considered.
It's tough from this position, because if we want to argue that, I would argue residential purposes based on court precedent it shows that short-term rentals are residential purposes, and even if there was some litigation, I would still be okay with a rental there. But that's, to your point, we shouldn't even be having that conversation. So.
See, just on that point, I don't think that's true. I think that if the city government has a responsibility if covenants are still in place, because they're recorded. So
the attorney said that this is a contract between the owners and it doesn't involve the city.
Yeah.
So that's municipal leagues.
I'm not so sure that that's correct.
Okay. Ms. Greene?
Can I ask something of Terry?
Okay, sure.
Okay. Terry, are you uncomfortable with this covenants? I mean, you're a real estate agent, and I respect your opinion.
I'm not uncomfortable with them because they haven't, the property owners have not formed an association. There's no one there that has they haven't ever taken upon themselves to enforce anything over there.
Okay. So what you're saying, you're not uncomfortable with it?
Well, I am uncomfortable that if they had a homeowners association or property owners association and they were everything was up to snuff there, then I think the city would have a responsibility.
Okay.
My comment on that would be that it was actually zoned R2 with the covenants in place, and R2 zoning doesn't match the covenants. Therefore, the city misstepped there if that's the line that you want to go down. Because that's...
Well, restrictive covenants can be more exacting than city code.
True.
They are everywhere.
But what you're saying is, I don't want to put a stipulation on something that already has covenants. Well, when the R2 was actually put in, you would have never zoned that R2 because it doesn't, you would have zoned it R1 because that's the only thing that the covenants would actually allow if you were making the decision. Anyway, not to go down.
Ms. Greene?
Sure.
Okay, one of the conditions of your application, I'm going to ask you this. You sent out certified letters to the surrounding, I believe it's square, it's the frontage roads.
Nope, it's the circle now.
Oh.
Or it was when we did it.
Okay, all right.
Well, I don't have anybody behind me, so I don't know.
But you sent them out. What was required of you?
Yeah.
Did you get all of the receipts back?
We did not. All
your little green things come back.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, got all the green things back.
Yeah, all the letters you sent out, you got to
Yes.
they were picked up by the property owners.
Correct.
Okay, that's all I needed to know.
Okay.
So, in other words, everybody got their letter. Nobody didn't get a letter.
I don't know that now that you're bringing it up, I go to the post office, I have the receipt that I sent them all.
Right.
I know they all didn't come in because one of my neighbors said they knew what it was, so they didn't even bother going and getting it because they're the ones that came.
Right, but you did get like
yes,
the majority.
The majority of them. We'd
Right.
have to have Glenna here to say exactly. I didn't
Yeah,
know.
I mean...
The majority, yes.
Okay, and no one protested this?
Nobody protested, no.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Snyder?
So out of the 11 notices that were sent out, only 2 came back.
Is there only 2?
I mean, only 2 responded.
Of the
11
positive?
letters that were sent out, only 2 responded, and they happened to be positive. I'm unhappy that only 2 out of 11 came back, got responded, but that's the way neighborhoods are. I'm just going to reiterate again, I don't like us second-guessing planning. It's not our job, it's not our experience, our knowledge, or our background.
All right, any further discussion?
I would like it noted, I too don't like going against planning. I just think that in this case, they had a lot of questions about this covenants.
Yeah, they had 3 opportunities.
I'm going to call for a motion then.
I move that we make a motion to approve the application for appeal for conditional use permit at 19 Thomas Drive.
Can you get a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nope.
All right, that makes it 3-1. Leaves it up to me. Because it was a tie vote on the Planning Commission with 2 ayes and 2 nays, and there was no negative opposition from the neighborhoods, and this is a neighborhood situation, I'm going to go ahead and vote in favor of.
Thank you very much.
All right. That brings us to our next application with Shaman Hill.
Had all the conditions.
Shaman. Get a motion to discuss the appeal conditional use for 1 Richard Circle. Get a second?
Second.
All right. Go ahead, Mr. Hill.
I guess Damon took the words right out of my mouth, basically. I mean, I bought the 3.5 acres 10 years ago, and I built that house from the ground up, and I'm never moving out of it. You know, I live there forever, so I'm not going to turn it into a nightly rental every night. And I sent out 9 letters, and I didn't get any of them back, and I actually talked to a lot of the neighbors, and they were all for it. And I've actually bought like 3 old houses in town and fixed them up, and they're actually being rented out for low-income homes right now. I don't know. I guess that's about it, really.
Questions, comments? Ms. Greene?
Well, I'm gonna say the same thing again.
Okay.
You have the right to apply, and if you meet the conditions, you have the right to receive it with no prejudice. And I know there's a lot, again, public sentiment against the conditional uses both ways, so I can't bring that in. As of now, you have the rights to apply and be granted this. And I'm going to ask you, how many letters did you send out?
I sent out 9.
Okay, and how many of the little green things did you get back?
Got every single one back.
So every one of your neighbors got their letter.
And a negative response, and I talked to like 4 of them, and they said they're all for it.
Okay. And I know I asked the chair of the Planning Commission. She abstained on your vote, and her comment to me was that there are things in their code book that are not up. You know, some people have some of it, some people have none of it, and she was unhappy with her code book, and that's why she abstained. I don't know what her vote would have been otherwise.
And it's not like I have a busy road. I have one neighbor. I have, Carol, and she doesn't care. And I got a lot of people coming in and out of the road, like my friends. But if I want to go away for the weekend and rent it out, and let someone stay in the house instead of a motel room, it'll be one car going down there and staying for the weekend. It's not like I'm going to rent it out every single night. And it was, Pine subdivision on the plat. So, I mean, really, I have 4 or 5 lots there. I could build 5 houses there and then rent them out. Just monthly or whatever, yearly, and then you'd have that much more traffic down there. But I just built one house, and I kind of took care of the land. I mean, that way there's not 5 houses going up, there's only one.
Okay. You're applying for just 1 unit, correct? Okay.
Any other comments, Mr. Thomas?
One, and I'm going from the minutes of the meeting. As I understand it, they went out and did a site visit.
Yes.
They came back. During the meeting, when they came up to discussion of your application, there was no discussion. There was just an immediate motion to vote. There were only 4 people there. 3 of them voted for it. The chairperson did not vote. Now I'm told that she did not vote because she's concerned that her book wasn't up to date. The chairperson, if the chairperson is a member of the group, which the chairperson on planning is, the chairperson can actually make a motion herself. She could have moved to defer this. She could have said, our books are not up to date, let's postpone this. So I think it was very unfair to you to deny you your application because her book was not up to date.
Mr. McClung, do you have a question?
I did have one question, and this is just strict tourist lodging, not bed and breakfast.
No, it's just, if I want to go away for the weekend or something, I'll let somebody rent it out for the weekend. So it's just I'm going to be gone, and tourist lodging they have control of the whole
and you
house.
understand it's permitted and do you have to pay taxes?
Have what? Sorry.
Pay taxes.
Yeah, and then you guys get taxes paid too. You guys get a check every month or year or whatever. So everyone,
I figured you figured. Yeah, but you knew. I just making sure.
Well, I don't know. It was confusing. It's been
All right,
confusing.
any further questions, comments?
Okay.
Ms. Snyder?
I don't know. It's the same thing again. I don't like going against planning. Seems to me in the past when we've done that, it's caused a lot of trouble because we didn't know or have or deal with all the information that they had. I just don't like the idea of for any number of votes. I don't like the idea of us having to make their decision. That's what it comes down to. I have a real problem with that.
Ms. Greene?
I think with planning, in the case of Mr. Henke, while I think a lot of them have a lot of sentiments, as I have sentiments, this is a very hot issue. But I think, and I agree with you, Mickey, I've been on planning, and I didn't like when they went against me either, and it really bothers me. But I think that their reference, in the case of Mr. Henke, was this covenants. They were trying to protect us from lawsuits, and I applaud them for that. I don't believe that they brought any personal feelings into it about, what a hot topic this is. I think they had real concerns, and I respect those concerns, as I respect our city attorney, and he assured me that this was fine. In the case of Mr. Hill here, I think that there was a lack of information in some of the books, and they wanted this to be done right. I don't think there was any prejudice towards them. Like I said, and I'm going to stand by this because I swore to uphold the law, you have the right to apply if you meet the conditions without prejudice. I have the right, I should grant you this because you've met Eureka Springs conditions. And with that, I will, unless it's anybody else want to talk? Okay.
Ms. Snyder?
Just one real quick point. Maybe you can explain it.
Okay.
The vote against says the request is not in tune with the existing land use pattern in the neighborhood. How is it, I'm asking him, how is it different?
Then what? The land use?
From the surrounding neighborhood. How is the property that you're trying to do different from the neighborhood?
Well, I mean, it's not really a neighborhood. It's a dead-end street. I bought the whole end of the street, the whole cul-de-sac. And I mean, I just have one neighbor on the right. And I mean, I sent letters out to the surrounding area, which, border up to, the back of East Mountain. And then everyone else, they just own a bunch of property. I mean, it's not like there's a neighborhood back there. It's just me and one other person.
Oh. And how can the pattern not be the same?
How many?
Maybe the deer pattern. There's a lot of deer up there.
How many acres?
3.5.
3.5, and it's 4 lots?
I think it's 4 or 5.
Okay.
Might be 1 through 5.
I've got 2 lots that are an acre, so that should give you an idea.
It's like 3.43 or something.
Okay. Just 2 lots, isn't it, Sean?
No, it's 4 or 5.
It's not the way it shows here.
I did sell a lot or 2 years ago.
The house is on 2 lots.
The house is on the 2 lots in the drawing.
But he owns 4 lots there, I think's what...
You own all the way around to Carol?
Yeah, border right up to her. And she was actually really nice and sweet about it. She was, and her son's a lawyer, and he, we talked about it, and he said, I just don't want you to be building a bunch of little houses and turn them into, rentals. And I said, no, I live here. This is my house,
So is there 2 lots, 2 houses on the entry into the Richard Drive?
Yeah, there's Uncle Bill, but he's part of East Mountain, and then there's some other guy, but that's part of East Mountain too, but his house, is on Richard Circle, but I think the East Mountain is his address.
Right.
And then it's just Carol Greer, and then mine.
Okay. So there's, okay.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the application for appeal for number 1, Richard Circle.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Discussion? Okay, not hearing any discussion. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Present.
So that's still 3-1. And I think I'm going to, because this is, it's still going to be maintaining a quiet neighborhood, and with the many large property you have on there, I'm going to vote aye in favor.
Thank you. All right.
So, all right. That gives us, next business is a motion to discuss ordinance number 2273 on its third reading.
I move that we read ordinance number 2273 on its third reading by title only.
Second.
All right.
Very good.
Any discussion? We need a roll call.
Mr. Thomas? Yes.
Yep, Mr. Buford's not. Mr. Buford,
No, you're back.
Do you mind if we read an ordinance by title only?
we're reading ordinance number 2273 by title only.
Is that okay with you?
Mr. McClung?
Yes.
Ms. Greene?
Yes.
Ms. Schneider?
Yes.
5-0. Ordinance number 2273, an ordinance levying a tax on all real estate and personal property in the city of Eureka Springs, Arkansas.
Get a motion to approve ordinance 2273 on its first, third reading.
Second.
Any discussion? I think that's voice. All in favor? Or does that
Oh, sorry.
roll call? All right.
Thank you. Mr. McClung?
Yes.
Ms. Greene?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Buford?
Yes.
5-0.
All right, so moved. All right, agendas. Anybody got anything? Ms. Greene?
I would like a discussion of safety signs in the residential areas.
Second.
And then the lighting.
Second.
Okay. And then I would like to put on a discussion of bringing to the people a vote on the conditional uses.
You get a second?
I'm not sure what you mean by that.
This is, Terry, for me, it's become, I'm just getting bombarded on either side. So I'm just to the point, I'd rather let the people decide it, that
For conditional use permits? Is
Yes.
that what?
To allow
Yes.
conditional use permits.
So you mean like putting it on the ballot?
Yes.
Well, so you just want to discuss that?
I just want to discuss it.
I don't care. I'll second it if that's what you
Okay.
need.
Okay. Anybody else have anything? All right. Not hearing anything. Council comments. Mr. Buford?
None?
Ms. Greene?
Oh, I've got some tonight. One of the things that, and it's got a lot of things to do, but we have public comments. And the public can come in and they can sit here and rip us, they can say things about us, and it's required that we sit here no matter what. It doesn't matter if they tell lies about you, it doesn't matter if they give you great feedback. We have to sit and listen. I had some comments made about me a few weeks ago that basically called me a liar. I didn't lie, and I brought people's what they told me. So to call me a liar was to call them a liar, and these people are really upset about it because they did not lie to me. They were genuinely concerned about a lot of things. The other thing is this conditional use is just, I've been bombarded for 3 years since we had that really acrimonious one on Elk Street. And it's pros, cons, and I asked to bring it to a vote. What happened tonight was, I feel bad that I went against planning. I was a planning commissioner for 7 years, and this was hard. But I also want, if it's in the book, that I have the same rights that I felt I demonstrated tonight, whether I liked it or not, whether I wanted to give these people a CUP or not, whether I want to get rid of CUPs. It's in this book, and I felt that they met all their obligations. And I know I'm going to get ripped for this, but I just want that to be known. I took an oath, and I felt like I did my duty tonight. And then, town looks great.
All right. Ms. Snyder?
Okay, you're done.
Yeah, but I wish. Sorry, it's ragweed season again. Okay, first I want to clarify, Yip and I are best friends, okay? And what best friends can do is rip each other a new one and still be best friends. And we are still best friends. We'll be having coffee together tomorrow. We just have a major difference of opinion.
Since my guy isn't.
In regards to the bank robbery, it wasn't so much that it was rehearsed, and I know that they worked really hard on it. It was all of the historical facts that were changed. And I'm sorry, you can't change history 100 years later, you know? And that was my biggest problem. Now, I do believe that Beep has actually been in it before, but I do know also that she has watched it every single year. But I'm sorry, they took hostages. That never happened. You know, no. They took hostages, which never happened. There were no ladies of the night, which is one of the most fun parts.
Maybe they were busy.
Would you stop? There were no church ladies to yell at the ladies of the night, and that is equally fun. When the people come and they watch this, they have a great time watching how the locals 100 years ago reacted. And yes, the church ladies would take their umbrella and they would whack the crap out of these ladies, using a euphemism as ladies. That was the fun. They thoroughly, thoroughly enjoy. So I don't care if you rehearse or not, if you come from Chelsea's or not, just keep it historical, which is what makes it fun. In regards to the light situation, I don't know how many people have gotten either an email or a text or a voicemail. I think I've gotten all three. SWEPCO is in the process of replacing, like 100 light poles and generators and stuff like that, and they will be doing this for 2 months. But all of the street lights around town are either SWEPCO or Carroll Electric. They're not ours, guys. We can't fix them. We can't, by law, touch them. So you call SWEPCO, you call Carroll Electric. I don't know what section, who has what. But let me tell you, I've got SWEPCO across from my house, and I have one of the brand new, is it an LED light? Is that what they're called?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, the kind with the cover so you don't blind airplanes. It's very effective. I think they will probably have to use less lights because those things are so good. Anyway, so yeah, those don't belong to us. We can't say boo. And that's it.
Mr. Thomas?
One comment on the lights with regards to the light in front of the Historical Museum. I don't think that's a city light.
They belong to the museum.
Private property.
Right.
Yeah.
They've got a special one.
Yep. Anything else?
No.
Okay. Mr. McClung?
In the old days, Phil Sloss would narrate the bank robbery, and he had one line: "The wages of sin are death." Let's all remember that. Go home peacefully.
All right. I want to let the citizens know that the city's contracted with a company called Matchpoint Incorporated to perform a water loss audit on a water distribution system. The leak detection system or services will begin today, September 24th, and run until October the 5th. This project will involve weekend and night work. Leak identification will require a small percentage of water meters to be temporarily disconnected, and in that event, the customers will be notified in advance. Matchpoint Water Asset Management is a corporation out of North Carolina with over 100 years of combined water industry experience, providing real and apparent water loss solutions nationwide and in 6 countries. So this project is an ongoing effort by the City of Eureka Springs to improve the efficiency and the quality of the water system. This project is funded by the infrastructure and improvement dollars from the Water Sewer Fund 80. Also, as far as events go, this coming weekend is from The 26th through the 30th is Bike Blues and Barbecue over in Fayetteville, and we'll be seeing a lot of that into our town. Also, October the 5th through the 7th is Corvette Show up at Pine Mountain Village with the Corvette Parade at 6:30 p.m., starting at the Victorian Inn, and will run to the end of the Ozarks. Usually they come downtown too, but I guess, and then come down through downtown and then back up to the end of the Ozarks. And then on the same evening, October the 6th, is Drumming in the Park from 6 to 8 in the Basin Park. So if there's nothing else, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, so moved. Thank you all.
You earned your money tonight.
Not bad considering.